Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the powdered air of 18th century Paris, where the streets reek of mystery, and oddly enough dentists smell like lavender. You walk down a cobbled alley just off Rue Saint-Honore, lantern light flickering on puddles of unknown origin, the kind you don't dare step in too hard. The sign above the crooked door reads something like Maître dentaire and parfumeur, yes, both. And when you push open the door, you're hit not with the expected sting of disinfectant, but a cloud of rosewater, cloves, and what is that? Something citrusy. You blink through the haze as shelves of gleaming metal tools glint in the candlelight, nestled among vials of perfume, tiny jars of crushed pearls, and sachets of dried herbs. And before you even sit down in the chair, you're offered not anesthesia, but a spritz of violet water. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You settle into the creaky chair. The dentist leans in, he smells divine. Somehow this feels less like a medical appointment and more like an awkwardly romantic séance. You glance at the tray of instruments, pewter forceps, a hook that looks like it should belong to a fisherman, and a crystal atomizer. That's right. In this strange little room, you're about to discover that oral hygiene and eau de toilette once walked hand in hand. 18th century Paris was a city under siege not by soldiers, but by smells. The stench of sewage, sweat, rot, and tightly corseted humanity filled every alleyway. Indoor plumbing? A fantasy. Soap. Too expensive for daily use. And so, when you stumbled into the hands of a dentist who also happened to sell perfume, you weren't confused. You were relieved. And here's the twist, they weren't just masking the scent of your mouth, they were creating a persona. Clean teeth, or at least teeth vaguely brushed with chalk and mint oil, were only part of the performance. The rest was olfactory theater. It's as if Sephora opened a pop-up in your dentist's office, and no one thought that was weird. Historians still argue whether this dual profession was born of genuine innovation or just shrewd marketing. After all, if you're already working inside someone's mouth, why not upsell something floral? And these weren't minor players. Parisian dentists with the talent for scent often catered to the rich and titled. Some developed their own signature colognes. Others aligned with apothecaries to sell mouth-freshening waters with grand promises like restores the breath of a newborn or favored by the Empress herself. And who could resist that? You can almost hear the clatter of hooves on cobblestones as a lacquered carriage arrives outside the shop. A powdered noblewoman descends, aided by a footman. Her smile is tight, perhaps from a throbbing molar, but her cheeks are dappled with crushed coral rouge, and her breath, one hopes, is tinged with bergamot and clove. Now imagine you're the next patient. You don't just want relief from the pain, you want a little mystery, a scent that will cling to your scarf and whisper elegance at the opera. And the dentist? He's only too happy to oblige with the tooth extraction and a complimentary sample of his latest blend, La Bouche Royale. Of course, not everything was scented serenity. For all the glamour, dental practices of the time were brutal. Anesthesia was non-existent. Tools were sterilized well, let's be honest, they weren't. Pain was managed with a shot of brandy and a prayer. But that perfume, that was hope in a bottle. A sensory distraction. A pleasant lie in a world where medicine still involved leeches. And yet, amid the clove oil and camphor, a strange credibility began to form. The perfumed dentist seemed modern, controlled, fashionable. You trusted him more than the blood-soaked barber surgeons or street corner quacks. Still, beneath the satin waistcoats and pleasant aromas, decay lingered. Literally. Because let's face it, no matter how many violets you crushed, they couldn't overpower a rotting molar. But they could make you believe they did, and that was half the battle. So here you sit, mouth open, surrounded by floral notes and faint terror. You came for healing, but stayed for the sensory experience. It's not sterile. It's not scientific. But it is, somehow, comforting. And outside? Paris keeps on stinking. But in here, in this peculiar little chamber of mint and misery, you breathe a little easier. You step back out into the Parisian street, your jaw sore, your breath vaguely floral. The city greets you with a gust of something far less refined: fish guts, tallow smoke, horse droppings, human sweat baked into cobblestones under a summer sun that has no mercy. Welcome to 18th century Paris, the fashion capital of Europe, and quite possibly its stinkiest. The Seine glitters to your left, deceptively lovely. By this time, it's more of a communal dump than a romantic river. Butchers throw offal into it. Tanneries line its banks. People bathe in it, sort of. You think back to the perfumed dentist and realize, in a world this pungent, no wonder perfume became not just a luxury, but a survival mechanism. Historians still argue whether the French truly smelled worse than their neighbors, or if Parisians simply complained more loudly about it. What's certain is that the olfactory landscape was complex, layered, and often overwhelming. Scents marked status, profession, even morality. The poor smelled like labor. The rich, like powdered rose petals and delicate panic. You take a slow walk through the Marais district, one of Paris's oldest. Shops spill out onto the street. A baker douses the air with scorched sugar and yeast. A nearby wig maker perfumes horsehair with orange blossom. And somewhere, just beyond a half-open shutter, someone empties a chamber pot with far too much enthusiasm. In this sensory onslaught, perfume isn't just for charm, it's armor. A way to fight back. Dentists knew this too. By offering scent, they weren't just selling a pleasant breath, they were offering a pocket of dignity. A few drops of civility in a world gone slightly sour. And it's not just the dentists who caught on. Apothecaries, barbers, even glove makers began to dabble in fragrance. The French word parfumeur started to appear alongside all sorts of professions. Because when everything smells bad, anything that doesn't is instantly suspect of magic. You pause at a stall selling small glass bottles, amber, green, cobalt blue. Labels in curly script promise miracles: Eau de la Reine, Essence de la Lune, Vina Igre de Quatre Voleurs. The last one, Vinegar of the Four Thieves, is a particularly delightful oddity. Supposedly used during the plague, it was a blend of herbs, vinegar, and wishful thinking. People believed it could protect you from disease. Or at least keep your nose distracted while the world fell apart. And here's where it gets interesting. Perfume, in Paris, starts to transcend its bottle. It becomes part of identity. The dentist doesn't just sell perfume, he wears it, so richly you suspect it might be part of his skin. His hands smell like mint and myrrh. His apron, like marigold. His waiting room, A carefully curated sensory spa of lavender sachets and cinnamon bark meant to make you forget you're about to lose a tooth with no anesthesia. And it works. Because in this world, the nose knows before the brain does. Scent becomes shorthand for safety, cleanliness, even modernity. Now imagine you're a patient again, but this time you can choose between two practitioners. One is a gruff surgeon who smells like boiled linen and onions, the other, our perfumed dentist, who greets you with a bow and a waft of neroli. No contest. It wasn't just about charm, it was strategy. Scents associated with cleanliness were believed to ward off disease. Miasma theory, the dominant medical belief at the time, held that bad smells were the root of illness. So if your dentist smelled divine? Clearly, he wasn't sick. Clearly, his tools were clean. Clearly, you were in better hands. Now, whether that was true is another story. Historians still debate whether perfume actually improved medical outcomes, or just made death smell nicer. But the perception? That mattered. And perception shaped behavior. Suddenly, to be a good dentist meant more than pulling teeth, it meant creating an experience. Perfume became an essential prop in this performance. And let's not pretend dentists were shy about it. Some went so far as to scent their calling cards. A waft of musk as you unfolded a crisp little note, Dr. Lucien Dauvigny, Soigneur de Dents and Marchand de Parfum. Catchy. This was a time before standardized credentials, after all. No dental school. No government regulation. So how did you choose a dentist? Well, by his clientele, by word of mouth, and yes, by the literal atmosphere of his shop. Dentists knew the power of first impressions. And perfume, quite literally, was the first impression. Before a word was spoken, before a tool was lifted, you had already judged them pleasant or putrid, trustworthy or terrifying. You pass by a perfumery on your walk, and the scent is sharp lemon verbena. You smile. It's the same scent that lingered in your dentist's coat. You wonder, was that coincidence? Or careful branding? You'll never know for sure. But one thing's clear, in this world of olfactory chaos, the perfumed dentist wasn't just a novelty, he was a necessary illusion. A breath of fresh air in a city that so desperately needed one. You're still wandering the cobbled arteries of old Paris, but now your feet guide you toward the quieter corners, the side streets where signs are hand-painted, where the scent of cloves and camphor wafts out from half-cracked doors. You peer into a narrow shop front framed by yellowed lace curtains. The door creaks as you enter, and suddenly you're standing in a different sort of space, equal parts curiosity cabinet and medical chamber. Here, the world of 18th century dental medicine unfolds, and it's a bit chaotic. Let's be clear, dentistry, as you know it today, does not exist yet. There are no neat rows of clean tools or laminated pamphlets about gum health. No official licenses hang on these walls. What you have instead is a strange blend of barbering, minor surgery, pharmacy, and improvisation. Your dentist may have trained under a surgeon, or he might have learned from his uncle, or just picked it up because he liked tools and people kept paying him. Historians still argue whether this era should be called the pre-professional phase of dentistry or just the age of good luck and Godspeed. But what we do know is this: if you walked into one of these shops with a toothache, you were just as likely to get a haircut or a balm for your joints while you were there. Let's take a look around. Over here is a shelf of little glass jars filled with powders, some for brushing teeth, others for disguising their odor. There's powdered charcoal, burnt bread, salt, even crushed oyster shell. All of them marketed to clean and polish, though they did a better job of scraping away enamel than decay. And over there? Tinctures galore. Bottles lined up like soldiers in an apothecary's dream. Clove oil for numbing. Myrrh for swelling. Mint, not just for breath, but for spiritual balance. Some concoctions claim to cure tooth rot in 5 minutes. Others promise to reinvigorate the gums, which is code for burn like fire and distract you from the real pain. One mainstream practice you're likely to encounter? Bloodletting. That's right. Many dental ailments were thought to be caused by imbalances in the body's four humors, so a good session with the lancet might be prescribed alongside your tooth extraction. It's a 2-for-1 special. Your gums bleed anyway, might as well lean into it. The tools, by the way, look like they belong in a pirate ship's storage chest. There's the pelican, a curved metal instrument with a hook for yanking teeth sideways. There's the key, which twists like a corkscrew to pop the tooth out, except it usually just breaks it. And of course, there's the forceps, which were considered cutting edge if they didn't slip mid-procedure and shatter a molar like old porcelain. But you know what was cutting edge? Multi-use professionals. Enter the dental perfumer. It wasn't enough to extract teeth. That market was saturated. But if you could soothe pain and sell a rose-scented rinse, now we're talking value. So you watch as today's dentist finishes one appointment a woman with a swollen jaw and wide eyes. He gently pats her hand, then pulls out a silver tray of scent samples like a sommelier offering post-trauma wine. She selects something called Eau de Camellia. He nods, and they exchange a few coins. Pain, perfume, and pleasantries. The full package. It's easy to laugh from the future, to think of this as quackery, but it's not entirely foolish. Clove oil, for example, does have numbing properties. Mint does freshen the breath. And the scented rinse? It might not save your gums, but it saves your pride. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about health, it's about face. In an era without antibiotics or consistent hygiene, your teeth were your social calling card. Bad breath could end a courtship before it began. A missing incisor could mark you as poor, ill, or worse, unfashionable. And dentists knew this. They weren't just healthcare providers. They were reputation managers. Scent became part of that ecosystem. If you couldn't fix a mouth, you could at least distract from it. And in 18th century France, distraction was sometimes the best cure of all. Take a moment to picture the clientele: bourgeois merchants, aristocratic ladies, even actors and poets. They'd file in not only with aching gums but with shopping lists for scented sachets, tooth powders, and floral waters. The dentist became a curator of personal presentation, as much a stylist as a healer. And somewhere between the clove tinctures and peppermint sprays, you realize something: this wasn't chaos. It was early branding. It was the prelude to specialization. A moment when medicine, marketing, and the human desire not to smell awful all collided in a small, perfumed room. So you sit in the corner, inhaling a strange but pleasant blend of sandalwood and sharp alcohol, and you watch this daily dance unfold. A man comes in for toothache relief. He leaves with a scented token for his mistress. A woman seeks help for swollen gums. She departs with confidence and a sachet that smells like spring. And somewhere, in the back, a dentist mixes a new formula. Because tomorrow, someone else will come in, mouth aching and breath doubtful, hoping not just to be healed but to be transformed. Your jaw is still aching, but the violet water clings softly to your collar, and that tiny, a rational part of you feels a little special, like you just walked out of a boutique instead of a dental chamber. But as you shuffle down the street, the scent of baked sugar from a patisserie drifts by and hits you with the realization, maybe your mouth is only the beginning of the problem. Because in 18th century France, teeth were losing the war against sugar. You turn a corner and pass a small boy gnawing on a candied almond. His smile is gapped, but his joy is whole. He's part of the first generation for whom sugar isn't a rare treasure, it's a creeping companion. Imported through the colonies, filtered through the salons of Versailles, and suddenly everywhere. Sugar has arrived. And it's not going anywhere. The aristocracy, always eager to outdo itself, doesn't just eat sugar, they sculpt with it. Marzipan castles. Crystallized violets. Sponge sugar wigs, if you can believe it. You visit a friend's salon and are offered tea so sweet it crunches between your teeth. It's delicious. It's delightful. It's dental doom. Historians still argue whether sugar consumption alone was to blame for the decay of France's pearly whites or if it simply accelerated centuries of poor oral care. But the evidence is visible. By mid-century, dental rot is rampant. You pass noblemen with painted lips to disguise missing incisors. Aristocratic women fan themselves to hide their sunken cheeks where molars used to be. And let's talk about those wigs. Powdered, perfumed, and so high they might catch on candle flames, wigs were symbols of power and vanity. But underneath them, neglect. The same went for mouths. Teeth were hidden behind fans, behind makeup, behind polite laughter, but they were crumbling just the same. You walk through a ballroom one night, and it hits you. The air is thick with perfume, with powder, with sugar-slicked breath. The glittering crowd dances under chandeliers, but a single smile in the wrong light can ruin the illusion. That's where our friend the dentist returns, quietly heroic, a fixer of facades. He doesn't judge. He sells solutions. Not cures, not really, but illusions. White powders for brushing, yes, but also pearl enamel for painting directly onto the teeth. Yes. Tooth makeup. We're not joking. You sit once more in his chair, and he shows you a tiny tin labeled Blanc de Saturn lead-based, chalky, dangerous. But it gives your teeth a temporary porcelain shine, and your enemies will never know the difference. Except perhaps when you faint from lead poisoning. Details. A popular blend he offers includes powdered coral, dragon's blood resin, and honey, meant to strengthen the gums and harden the tooth spirits, whatever those were. Another mixture intended for royal use only contains gold dust, cloves, and a hint of orris root. It smells divine. It tastes like ambition. And if your teeth are too far gone? Well, there are solutions for that too. You may purchase a set of false teeth, carved from ivory or walrus tusk. If you're truly fortunate or rich, you might even obtain a pair held together with silk threads and actual human teeth, harvested from, well, don't ask. The answer isn't relaxing. What is relaxing, however, is the realization that everyone else is just as desperate. You look around and see powdered faces, perfumed mouths, scented handkerchiefs fluttering like desperate white flags. Everyone's playing the same game, pretending that everything is perfect, and that nothing inside their mouths is turning black and hollow. Perfume becomes the great equalizer. If you can't afford real dental work, you can at least afford a rinse. Something with mint, or thyme, or a touch of rose. Swish it around, spit discreetly into a velvet-lined basin, and carry on with your day. Of course, you've now learned to sniff out the differences. You can tell a cheap lavender rinse from the real thing. You know when someone's using too much patchouli to mask a problem. You're part of a culture where breath matters more than ever before because it's one of the few things people can control. And so our perfume dentist thrives. His shop expands. He hires an assistant to mix tinctures, another to sweep up broken enamel. He adds a mirrored screen for privacy. Clients whisper rumors. A duchess sent him a thank you note scented with bergamot. A playwright allegedly wrote a whole monologue about him, but no one will say which play. One thing's for sure, he's in demand. Because in a time when people are literally dying from abscessed molars, he offers more than pain relief. He offers hope. Hope in a crystal bottle. Hope with a cinnamon aftertaste. And you? You return often, not always for treatment, but sometimes just to breathe. To inhale the comforting swirl of mint and clove and rose that lives inside that tiny shop. To remind yourself that, even in an era of decay and indulgence, someone's still trying to make the world smell just a little better. You wake up the next day with a dull ache in your jaw and the lingering scent of bergamot on your pillowcase. It's oddly reassuring proof that the visit was real. That in a city of contradictions, one man really is plucking molars by candlelight while selling perfume worthy of Versailles. As you sip a lukewarm tisane made from chamomile and fennel, a supposed digestive aid and mild tooth soother, you can't help but marvel at how deeply intertwined scent and self-image have become in your world. You've heard it said that in Paris, everyone performs. That identity isn't just worn, it's worn well, and ideally, scented like violets. So let's take a closer look at that world of scent, shall we? It's not just any perfume your dentist sells. These are curated aromas. Carefully blended. Gendered. Classed. There are masculine notes: leather, clove, tobacco, and feminine ones: rose, lily, orange blossom. And in the world of oral care, even breath has its gender. You stroll through the Saint Germain market, passing stalls hung with drying herbs. A woman offers you a pot of thyme and tells you to steep it for the breath of youth. Next to her, a man sells a chewable bark set to refresh the mouth and stir the loins. You raise an eyebrow, keep walking. The truth is, in this time, breath is about more than health. It's about intimacy, proximity, reputation. Bad breath might not kill you, but it could certainly kill your chances at court, in marriage, even in business. Historians still argue whether the obsession with breath was medically justified or a projection of class anxiety. But for the people living it, the answer didn't matter. If your mouth didn't pass the sniff test, you were done. You pause at the edge of a garden courtyard, watching two ladies in embroidered bodices whisper beneath a lilac tree. One leans in to speak, the other subtly lifts a gloved hand to her face. You know that gesture now. She's masking her reaction just in case. Better safe than socially condemned. And our dentist? He capitalizes on this social anxiety like a seasoned performer. His perfumes are divided into categories. Elixirs of affection, for those hoping to attract a partner. Waters of decency, meant for everyday civility. And, of course, formulations for the afflicted, tailored to clients with persistent oral maladies. A polite euphemism if ever there was one. One popular blend is Eau du Mariage, a pre-wedding rinse infused with jasmine, mint, and just a touch of white wine vinegar. Brides are advised to use it 3 times a day for 2 weeks before the ceremony. The implication, of course, is that nothing says forever like breath that doesn't reek of last night's pheasant stew. Another bestseller? Elle se per silencieux, the silent sigh. Designed for women at court, it's a gentle blend of neroli and hyssop that won't overpower a lover's cologne but will soften the air between closed faces. It's romantic. It's poetic. It's basically mouthwash. You wonder, in quiet moments, if the whole city is in on the performance. If everyone knows these products don't cure decay, just mask it. But then again, isn't that what most fashion does? A little deception. A lot of hope. You think back to your last appointment. The dentist had worn a different scent, something darker, muskier, with a base of cedar and something sharp you couldn't quite name. He'd said it was for men of discernment. You'd nodded solemnly and left with a sample, even though you couldn't tell if it made you smell intelligent or just like a very clean bookshelf. And yet, that bottle sits on your nightstand now. Because in this world, scent is more than personal, it's political. A well-scented mouth signals not just hygiene, but ambition. Refinement. It says, I care how close you get. I have nothing to hide. Of course, not everyone has access to these luxuries. Perfumed rinses, aromatic pastes, and hand-blended powders are expensive. The lower classes rely on chewing herbs, rinsing with salt water, or simply enduring. You pass a laborer on the street whose smile is missing 3 teeth, but who's tucked a sprig of rosemary behind his ear anyway. He's trying. Everyone's trying. And perhaps that's the most touching part of this whole scented saga. Underneath all the pretense, people just want to be presentable. To be welcomed. To be close to one another without shame. That, you realize, is the perfume dentist's greatest service. Not just the tools. Not just the clove oil or the fancy rinse. But the restoration of dignity, one scented breath at a time. So you tip your hat to the man behind the curtain. The unsung artisan of oral intimacy. The one who knows that sometimes, the only thing between rejection and romance, is a whisper of lemon balm and lavender. The bell above the shop door jingles lightly as you step back inside the little dental perfume haven, and you're greeted not with a bonjour, but with the soft rustle of fabric and the sweet, raisinu scent of benzoin and clove. The perfume dentist is mid-appointment, and you quietly take a seat in the corner, watching the quiet choreography of this peculiar profession. His current patient is a middle-aged man in a faded waistcoat, lips trembling with pain, clutching his tricorn hat like a child with a comfort blanket. The dentist moves calmly, offering not just care, but performance, a carefully layered experience. Every movement has grace. Every sound is softened. Every scent is perfectly placed. This is the bouche business, the mouth trade, not just a matter of pulling teeth, but of selling transformation, reassurance, even fantasy. As you watch, a young assistant, barely more than a boy, hands the dentist a ceramic bowl containing warm mint water. The patient rinses, winces, and sets the bowl down with shaking hands. Then, the dentist reaches for his atomizer, lavender this time, delicate and dry, and sprays a fine mist around the man's face. Not for healing. For calm. In 18th century France, fear of medical procedures wasn't irrational, it was inherited. Passed down like bad posture or brittle teeth. Pain was assumed. The question wasn't if it would hurt, but whether it would be bearable. Which is why scent, once again, became the unspoken hero of the clinic. Historians still argue whether these early dental perfumes truly soothed the nervous system or simply provided distraction. Some claim lavender reduced tension. Others insist it was all psychological. But when a root fragment is being tugged from your jaw without anesthesia, a soothing scent in the air feels like mercy itself. You're ushered gently into the other chair while the last patient recovers with a cloth of crushed violet pressed to his temple. The assistant lights a small resin burner in the corner myrrh, perhaps, or styrax, and its smoke curls lazily toward the ceiling. Today, your issue isn't a rotting molar, but a sensitive incisor. A sharp pang when you drink wine. The dentist nods as you describe it, then gently tilts your head back. His fingers are gloved, his breath smells of fennel, and his tools glint with a polish that could only have come from obsessive care. But it's not just the care, it's the ritual. The swish of your rinse, the precise dab of oil to the gum, the soft cloth that dries your lips after. He even offers you a sugar-free pastille before he begins. Peppermint and anise. Cooling, oddly elegant. You wonder, briefly, how many of his clients come here not out of necessity, but for the ceremony. How many treat it like a spot, a sanctuary, a kind of scented confessional. He dabs your gums with something that stings. Clove oil, almost certainly. You flinch. He hums a note of apology and offers a square of orange peel to bite down on. Then he gently manipulates the tooth, whispering something about nerves and spirits, half medical, half mystical. And all the while, he keeps the scents flowing. A pulse of marjoram here. A trail of frankincense there. As if each breath you take weaves a safety net under the pain. You close your eyes and let your other senses do the work. The feel of the chair hard, but padded. The sound of his tools soft metal on porcelain. The scent of the room layered like an orchestra. Top notes of citrus and mint. A heart of lavender and myrtle. A base of cedar, beeswax, and old linen. You're not in a dental chair. You're in a dream. Of course, there's still pain. The nerve twinges. Your breath catches. But something about the setting makes it tolerable. Like watching a thunderstorm from under a thick quilt. You know the danger is real, but it can't quite reach you. Eventually, he steps back. Nods. The tooth is fine, just irritated. He offers a paste to rub along the gumline, basil and camphor in a thick, waxy blend. And, naturally, a vial of his latest rinse, eau de dentier. He claims it's good for both breath and courage. You leave the chair lighter, even though nothing's been extracted. You've been seen. Tended to. Perfumed like royalty. As you exit the shop, the assistant bows and slips you a folded card. It's a small pamphlet, really a list of services, complete with little sketches of teeth and herbs. On the back, it reads, La bouche parfumée for those who wish to be remembered kindly. And you think to yourself, that's exactly it. That's the point. No one wants to be remembered as the man with the foul mouth or the woman who whispered rot. We want to be remembered as elegant, clean, lovely, kindly. That's what the perfume dentist sells, more than anything else. Not health. Not beauty. But memory, sweetened and softened by scent. And you, now part of this curious clientele, are better for it? If not healed, then at least, delicately camouflaged. A few days later, you find yourself at a small evening gathering in the home of a minor aristocrat. Candles flicker in mirrored sconces, lace glimmers at every cuff, and you're sipping something sweet and faintly spiced mulled wine, perhaps, or one of those herbal elixirs that claim to be both recreational and restorative. The hostess, Madame Lefebvre, floats around the salon, trailing sandalwood and gossip. Someone mentions her teeth sparkling, just a little too white to be real, and she smiles coyly. My dentist, she says, also makes the most divine tincture. It's like kissing a garden. Around the room, heads nod with understanding. Everyone has someone now. A favorite tooth puller, a signature scent, a secret rinse that they believe no one else knows about. The perfumed dentist is no longer a curiosity. He's a status symbol. You ease into a velvet chair, a plate of sugared almonds balanced on your knee, and listen as conversation drifts from theater to politics to, inevitably, the body. Someone is complaining about gum fatigue, a new term, apparently, for receding gums. Another swears by lemon peel paste to tighten the breath. A gentleman from Toulouse insists he has his teeth brushed professionally once a week. Gasps follow. One woman nearly drops her glass. This isn't just chatter. It's class performance. Dental care, once the realm of barbers and battlefield medics, is now becoming an art form. An affectation. A gentle, well-scented signal that you know the right people. And in the corner? That's Henriette, the apothecary's niece. She's sketching something quietly, an elegant diagram of the human jaw, adorned with flowers and vines. She tells you she's assisting the perfumed dentist now. He's designing a pamphlet. Not just an advertisement but an experience. You glance at the draft she shows you. It reads, La Bouche, Aesthetic Practices for the Elegant Mouth. Beneath it, a list, tinctures, rinses, fragrant varnishes, and in delicate script, now available with jasmine or cinnamon finish. Historians still debate whether these documents were ever meant to be medical guides or simply scented fantasies. A blend of half science, half seductiveness. The lines between health and charm are blurring, and frankly, no one seems to mind. You're invited to try a new product, a dry paste infused with rose petals and fig leaf. It's meant to be pressed gently onto the teeth with a velvet cloth. No water, they insist. Too bourgeois. You try it later that evening, standing before a cloudy mirror in a friend's guest room. The paste tastes like a memory, sweet and earthy, with a hint of wood smoke. Your teeth feel oddly smooth. You stare at yourself and think, this is not medicine. This is theater. And the stage is getting grander. Back at the salon, someone mentions that the perfumed dentist is experimenting with aromatized toothpicks, cinnamon-infused splinters of polished wood, kept in mother-of-pearl cases. Perfect for discreet use during the opera, one man explains. Especially during long arias. You can't help but laugh. And yet, you want one. The next morning, you make your way back to the shop. The door is open. Inside, a new display sits in the window, a velvet-lined box labeled Les Essences in Times. It contains a trio of small jars, one rinse, one gum balm, one tiny vial of post-treatment cologne. The presentation is so pristine you hesitate to touch it. A sign reads, for discerning clients only. A woman in mourning arrives after you, veiled in gray. She speaks softly to the assistant. Her husband passed recently, and she fears her teeth are slipping. She wants something to restore her composure. Not just her breath but her bearing. You don't catch what the assistant whispers back, but you see the vial he hands her. It's wrapped in lace and sealed with wax. She tucks it into her sleeve like a sacred object. There is reverence here. A strange, beautiful seriousness. This isn't frivolous anymore. This is personal alchemy. Perfume once disguised decay. Now it elevates survival into style. You take your seat again, this time not for pain, but for curiosity. The dentist greets you with the different scent ambergris and lemon verbena. He smiles. It's a new blend. For moments of renewal. He shows you a sample of a product in development, Dent El Buccal, a kind of scented dental lace, meant to be worn over the tongue at night, gently infusing the breath. You're not even sure it works. But you want it? Because now, you're not just a patient. You're a participant in a ritual. A wearer of breath. A believer in the idea that health and beauty might meet somewhere in the midst of clove and rose. And as you leave the shop with your newest tincture, the street outside feels just a little sweeter. You're starting to notice things. Not just the perfume, or the ever-changing blends the dentist dabs behind his ears, but the way people respond to them. How, in a crowded salon or on the streetcar, they lean just slightly towards someone scented with clove and iris. How a faint trace of cinnamon breath can pause a conversation not with offense, but intrigue. The perfumed dentist has changed something in you. Or maybe just revealed it. You stroll past a boulangerie, the smell of warm brioche mixing with the amber tobacco notes of a nearby passerby. And you think, absurdly, he must see the same dentist. Because yes, it's becoming a thing. A quiet club. A society of scented mouths. And tonight, that society gathers for something new, a demonstration. You receive the invitation in the most proper form, a folded parchment sealed with lilac wax. Inside, a handwritten note. An evening of aromatic enlightenment at the residence of Monsieur Duval, 8 o'clock sharp. Refreshments and rinse samples to follow. Naturally, you attend. The salon is dimly lit and richly perfumed. Glass bottles of varying shapes gleam from every table, etched labels like Essence de Confidence and Liqueur de Langue. The host, a wealthy friend of the perfumed dentist, stands near the hearth, swirling a cordial that smells faintly of cardamom. Then, he clears his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he begins, we've spent centuries scenting our bodies, our linens, even our letters. But have we truly considered the breath? The tongue? The very air that carries our words. You hear a few amused titters. Then silence. Tonight, we propose something bold. The breath, perfumed. Not masked. Not scolded. But designed. From behind a curtain steps the dentist himself, dressed immaculately, with a sprig of rosemary tucked into his lapel. He bows slightly, then gestures to a row of glass decanters. This, he says softly, is your voice's new wardrobe. The crowd leans in. He explains the concept, matching scented rinses to occasions. Something herbaceous for mornings. Something floral and uplifting for theater outings. A woody blend for political debate to ground one's rhetoric, he jokes. Gentle laughter follows. Historians still argue whether this moment, the first breath wear showcase, was serious marketing or high society farce. But everyone there remembers it. The sensation. The audacity. The taste of juniper and basil as you swirl the first sample on your tongue. You try it. Everyone does. Little crystal goblets, passed from hand to hand. You sip, swish, and marvel. It's not overpowering. It's subtle. But it's there. You imagine yourself whispering secrets laced with thyme. Kissing someone who smells faintly of bergamot, even after dessert. Later, the dentist presents his piece de resistance, Les Paroles Parfumées, a rinse so light, it leaves no taste, only a feeling. Like cool silk on your breath. The room is quiet as people try it. For a moment, no one speaks. Then someone sighs and says, "That felt like confidence." Applause breaks out. Of course, there are skeptics. In the corner, an old magistrate snorts into his brandy. "Next they'll be selling scented arguments," he mutters. But even he accepts a sample. And here's the most curious part, none of this feels silly anymore. You believe it? Everyone here does. Because in this society, scent means more than decoration. It means readiness. To be heard. To be near. To be remembered. You leave the event with a small sample tucked in your pocket, a blend called Amber Elegant. You're told it pairs well with serious conversation and port wine. You believe it? As you walk home through the chill night air, the city feels changed. Or perhaps, you do. You breathe out slowly, and for once, you notice not your words, but the trail they leave behind. The next morning, you rise earlier than usual, stirred not by sunlight but by a strange sense of momentum. You've begun a quiet ritual, a rinse, a dab of balm along the gums, a whispered reminder to yourself in the mirror that you are, in fact, quite refined today. It's ridiculous. It's delightful. It's working. You walk through the Marais district, where shops are just beginning to open. Bakers dust flour from their aprons. A chimney sweep sings to himself, notes rising into the soft blue morning. And tucked between a shoemaker's workshop and a wig merchant is a tiny storefront you've never noticed before. The glass is fogged. A simple placard reads, "Bouillon de Parfums, for the curious mouth." Inside, it's barely more than a closet. Shelves climb the walls, filled with hand-labeled vials. A woman in gray robes nods to you without speaking. Her hands move quickly as she measures out a thimble of liquid into a blue glass bottle. You ask, tentatively, if this is an extension of the perfume dentist's practice. She smiles, just slightly. He sends clients here for refinements. And so begins your education in the aftermarket of scented dental culture. This is where the real connoisseurs come. Those who've graduated beyond lavender and peppermint and now experiment with more obscure essences: amber, vetiver, smoked orange rind, frankincense water aged in beeswax-lined pots. Historians still argue whether shops like this operated independently or under the perfume dentist's quiet sponsorship. Some claim it was a loose guild, others suggest a single network, maintained through coded recipes and whispered referrals. What's certain is this: by the mid-18th century, perfumed oral care had splintered into subtle hierarchies. The basic rinses. Mass market, for the socially anxious middle class. But this place? This is for the scented elite. The woman offers you a test. "You strike me," she says, "as someone who speaks often, but listens more." Before you can reply, she selects a vial, golden, viscous, and pours 2 drops onto a folded cloth. Apply to the tongue. Briefly. Then breathe through your nose. You do. Instantly, your senses light up. Not with fire, but a kind of glow. The taste is like lemon pressed through old parchment. Dusty, bright, restrained. She watches closely, as if gauging your soul's pH. "It's called Citron Tendu," she says. "We created it for courtroom clerks." Encourages clarity. You buy a small vial. She wraps it in velvet. No price is discussed, it's understood. Later that day, you share your discovery with a friend over coffee. He laughs, but the kind of laugh that ends in curiosity. "They're opening another shop near the theater," he says. For stage actors. Breath enhancers that match emotion. You raise an eyebrow. Yes, he insists. Tragedy blends. Comedy rinses. One actor claimed it changed the timing of his delivery. And just like that, you see it, the idea's final form. No longer just a tool for hygiene or romance, but a mechanism of expression. The mouth is the gate. Scent is the message. And the perfume dentist? He's become a kind of invisible director, shaping how Paris speaks, kisses, whispers, and sighs. Back at home, you line up your growing collection on the windowsill. They glisten in the light like tiny potions. You try one called Reverie Dao Sweet Reverie, a blend meant for nighttime conversations and soft promises. It smells of chamomile, bruised apple, and faded ink. It tastes like the last word before sleep. And in that moment, you realize this has gone beyond habit. You're not just rinsing anymore. You're composing. Your breath has become a paragraph. A sentence of scent. And the world, somehow, feels more readable when your words are laced with meaning, even if no one else quite knows why. It's market day in Paris, and the streets are alive with sound vendors shouting over one another, horses snorting in narrow lanes, and the melodic clatter of baskets being unpacked and repacked. You're weaving through the crowd with a purpose, not for fruit, not for fabric, but for amber rinse. There's a new blend rumored to have hints of toasted fennel and green fig, and you've convinced yourself your breath feels a touch too morning. Your feet take you to an unfamiliar part of town, a newer district, all clean facades and wider streets. Here, among the candle shops and imported lace boutiques, stands a storefront with the carved ivory sign, Dentisterie de Saint-Yours. The scented dentistry. You laugh under your breath. The movement has arrived. Gone is the crooked little door of your original perfume dentist. This place is polished. Large windows. Fresh cut flowers. A small harp playing in the background, live, no less. Inside, a young man greets you in tailored wool. Welcome, he says, with breath that smells faintly of pear and sage. Would you like a consultation or a scent pairing? You blink. A scent pairing. Yes, he smiles, for your voice. Your intention. We offer bespoke breath profiles now. Of course they do. You're ushered past walls lined with mirrors and jars, down a hall of soft lighting and muffled chatter. It's like entering a spa designed by an apothecary who once kissed a composer. You're seated in a plush chair, not the dentist's chair you remember, but something between a chaise lounge and a confessional. An attendant arrives, clipboard in hand. Tell me, she says, do you speak often in debate or intimacy? Are you hoping for presence or softness? What do you want your breath to say when you're not speaking? It's almost ridiculous. Almost. But you answer honestly. You talk about your work, your dinner conversations, the people you lean toward when laughter turns to secrets. You describe your voice as rounded, usually, and your breath as acceptable, but uninspired. She nods like a sommelier. Then she leaves and returns with 3 small bottles, each labeled with an inked glyph and a wax seal. You try them one by one. The first is too floral, like walking into a grandmother's wardrobe. The second is sharp, herbal, bracing. But the third. It tastes like still air before thunder. Green and low and slightly resinous. You feel quieter just breathing it. This, she says, is like an and lyric. Formulated for those who don't always speak, but want to be listened to. You smile, and she doesn't smile back. just nods, solemnly, as if something has been understood. Historians still debate when breath pairing first emerged as a practice, and whether it stemmed more from pseudoscience or sincere innovation. But regardless, the demand was real. These rinse salons began popping up across Paris, each with its own house philosophy. Some offered scent therapy. Others focused on oral aura cleansing. One, infamously, claimed it could diagnose heartbreak by breath alone. You leave the scented dentistry with your tiny bottle of lichen and lyric, along with the tongue balm for evening proximity and a card entitling you to a whisper analysis at your next visit. You don't know what that means, but you're intrigued. That night, at a quiet dinner with friends, you catch someone glancing your way when you speak. A small pause. Then they lean in. "What is that?" they ask. You smell calm. And for the first time, you don't brush it off. You simply reply, "It's my breath." Because now, your breath isn't just neutral. It's curated. Chosen. Worn like a favorite coat or carefully folded letter. It enters a room with you, says things you don't know how to say. And though you never imagined your visits to a dental shop would lead here, you find yourself strangely proud. Because in a city full of noise, you've learned to speak in silence with scent, with stillness, with a sigh that smells like moss and memory. The weeks pass, and the perfume dentistry movement no longer belongs to the fringes. It's not a novelty. It's fashion. From Versailles to village markets, from poets to pastry chefs, everyone now has an opinion on breath scent. The court favors orris root and pale bergamot. The clergy frown on anything too sweet, favoring mint, thyme, and stern simplicity. And in back alleys and cafes, artists swirl wormwood and clove in their mouths like holy sacraments. You begin to notice the language changing too. People no longer ask if you've visited the doctor, they ask, "Who's tending your breath these days?" There are breath salons now, yes, entire establishments dedicated to vocal atmosphere, linguistic fragrance, and even nostalgic resonance. These terms sound absurd, yet somehow make sense the moment you step inside. One such place, Paroles Flottants, becomes your favorite. Located down a quiet street near the Seine, it offers aromatic narration sessions. You book one out of curiosity. You're led into a room lined with books. Not to read, no. You speak them aloud. An attendant hands you a passage from Rousseau, and as you recite, they adjust the diffuser behind you, changing the blend to match your cadence. Chamomile for calm phrases. Cumin and violet for assertive turns. A touch of cedar at the end. You've never felt more ridiculous, or more seen. They give you a scorecard afterward, not a grade, but a profile, voice type, reflective. Breath color, dusty lilac. Lingering effect, 27 seconds. Historians still argue whether any of this had medical merit. But even the skeptics admit, it worked, in its way. Breath became art. Expression. Not just expelled air, but a signature, a story. One evening, you return to your original dentist's shop. It's quieter now. The fancier salons have drawn away the clients seeking spectacle. But the scent inside? Still perfect. He greets you like an old friend, gestures for you to sit. "No more pain?" he asks. "None," you reply. "Just evolution." He smiles and opens a drawer. "Then maybe you're ready." Inside is a box of 12 tiny vials unlabeled. "These," he says, "are for moments with no name. You choose them not by scent, but by feeling. You pick one at random. It smells of candle smoke, lemon peel, and paper. You whisper something aloud, anything. A poem. A memory. It lingers. You ask him where it all started. When did dentistry become storytelling? He shrugs. When people stopped wanting to fix pain, and started wanting to rewrite it. You leave with 2 vials and a pressed flower tucked inside the collar of your coat. Later that night, walking along the river, the wind picks up. Your breath leaves your mouth like a slow exhale of ink and citrus. Someone turns toward you. Smiles. You don't say a word. You don't need to. Because your breath is already speaking softly, gently, and with perfect clarity. The season turns. Paris moves into that soft, smoky hush of early autumn when chimneys puff faintly again and the river smells of wet stone. With it comes a shift in breath fashion, too. Gone are the bright citrus rinses of summer. Now it's all about warmth, cardamom, toasted barley, chestnut leaf. Everyone's mouth smell like they're hiding a memory. You receive an invitation unsigned, sealed with a wax rose. Salon de El Hélène Intime, it reads. The salon of intimate breath. You laugh aloud, but still, you go. It's held in a converted attic above a bookbinder's. You climb creaking stairs and duck through a velvet curtain into a low-lit room scented like cinnamon and aged leather. Here, the practice is different. You don't speak aloud. You breathe across objects, notes, silk gloves, pressed flowers, and then pass them to others. It's a kind of sensory confession. Across the room, a woman inhales from a page you've just breathed upon. She closes her eyes. Nods. Says nothing. The man beside her hands you a linen handkerchief faintly scented with myrrh and nutmeg. You breathe in. It smells like homesickness. You sit quietly, amazed. In the far corner, your old perfume dentist is there. Not running the event, just watching, smiling faintly as though all of this is precisely what he hoped would bloom. He catches your eye and walks over. You see, he says. It was never about teeth. You nod. It's about what comes after. He tilts his head, pleased. Historians still argue whether gatherings like these were deeply symbolic or simply fashionable eccentricities. But they were real, and they spread. From Paris to Vienna to Alexandria. Breath salons. Whisper rooms. Voice perfume ateliers. Even now, centuries later, archaeologists sometimes find tiny glass bottles with handwritten labels, for apologies. For first kisses. For leaving. Back in your flat, your collection has grown. Dozens of vials now, arranged by mood, not function. One evening, a friend visits someone you haven't seen in years. They're tired. Restless. You say little. Instead, you open a small bottle and breathe out near them an old blend, warm honey, chamomile, dust. Something safe. They inhale. Close their eyes. Thank you, they whisper. You say nothing. You don't need to. Because by now, you understand the full truth of the perfume dentist's legacy. The body remembers pain. But breath remembers care. It's winter now, and Paris has quieted under a thin shawl of frost. You wake to silver windows and rooftops outlined in white, and with them comes a kind of hush that slows everything, even the breath. The city's sounds feel muffled. Footsteps land softer. The river seems to flow in whispers. And the scents have changed again. You notice it first in the morning cafes. Gone are the sharp florals and bright herbs of spring and summer. Now people speak with breath scented in vanilla husk, smoked pine, and faint chocolate bark. Everything has curled inward, deepened. The air tastes more like memory than perfume. You visit the perfume dentist once more. His shop is quieter these days. Those who sought spectacle have moved on to the newer salons, the ones with velvet-tongued consultants and curated emotional pairings. But this place remains steady, sincere. He greets you with his usual quiet nod and a scent you can't quite place, bitter orange with something like clove smoke. There's dust in his hair. He's been mixing. I'm closing for a time, he says. Not forever. Just enough. You nod. It feels appropriate. He gestures to the shelves, now half full. Take what you'll use, he says. I'd rather they live on mouths than sit in bottles. You choose 3. A blend labeled for letters never sent, basil, aged paper, and dried lilac. One called quiet applause, rosemary, iron, and faint myrrh. And a final, unnamed bottle, sealed in dark wax. He smiles when you choose it. That one, he says, was never finished. Let it become what it wants. You sit with him for a while. No treatment. No sales. Just quiet. The fire crackles. Somewhere above, a cat paws at the windowsill. Historians still argue whether these final chapters of the perfume dentistry era were a decline or an evolution. The answer is probably both. As with all revolutions, there comes a point where novelty becomes nostalgia. And then, finally, tradition. Before you leave, he offers a gift, a small journal, the pages lined but blank, with a cover that smells faintly of mint and pear blossom. Record your own blends, he says. Or don't. Maybe just what they meant. That night, you sit by candlelight and open the journal. You uncap one of the bottles, quiet applause, and let a drop fall onto the corner of the page. You write only a sentence. You taught me to speak softly and be heard anyway. The scent rises, lingers, fades. And still, it says something. It's early spring now, and the city feels like it's breathing again. Trees blush green at the edges, carriages clatter a little faster, and the Seine smells less of snow and more of soil, like things are waking up underground. You feel it too. A shifting. A return. You're sitting on a park bench, journal in your lap, when a stranger sits beside you. Young, bright-eyed, wrapped in a scarf that smells weight. You know that scent. It's like an end lyric. You glance over. They notice. Smile. My tutor gave it to me, they say. Said it helps with poise. You nod slowly, realizing how far things have come. A generation now weaves breath scent into learning, into growing, into becoming. It's no longer luxury. No longer eccentricity. It's language. The stranger pulls out a small cloth pouch, stitched, well worn. Inside are tiny glass tubes, each with a wax-stamped letter. They hold one up. This one's for courage, they say. I use it before reading aloud. You inhale gently as they open it. There's frankincense, a flash of mint, and something smoky sweet, like roasted almond skin. It smells like trying again. They offer you a drop. You accept. The two of you sit in comfortable silence, watching pigeons squabble beneath the trees. A boy chases them half-heartedly. A woman hums a folk tune you almost remember. And as you sit there, breathing, remembering, you begin to see the world through the lens the perfume dentist gave you. That every moment, however small, is scented. That every word you offer the world carries weight, color, air. Historians still debate whether this movement ever truly faded. It certainly stopped being fashionable in the traditional sense. But something lingered. In customs. In ceremony. In whispers. Because some things once discovered can't be undone. Like the way you now pause before speaking. Or how you breathe differently around people you love. How you choose a scent not for what it is, but for what you hope it might become. You carry your own little pouch now. Not for status, or trend, or even memory. Just readiness. A readiness to meet the world with intention. To speak with presence. To breathe with meaning. Later that evening, you walk past the perfume dentist's old shop. The sign has been taken down, and the shutters are drawn. But there's a single flower blooming in a pot on the sill, a violet, small and defiant. You pause. Exhale. The air warms slightly, carries your breath away. Someone will walk by after you and catch the faintest trace of it. And maybe, just maybe, they'll understand. It's late evening now. The kind of soft, golden dusk that Paris seems to have patented. Windows glow like quiet lanterns, and the city moves more slowly, as if even the cobblestones are beginning to yawn. You return home with no intention but to rest. The day has been full of gentle moments, a familiar scent on a scarf, the last plum at market, a stranger who thanked you simply for listening. Nothing dramatic, and yet each felt like a footnote in a book you don't want to end. At your desk sits the journal, the one the perfume dentist gave you. Its pages are half filled now. Not with confessions or recipes, but with memories. You flip to a blank page and write. Tonight, I wore nothing. No clove. No mint. Only silence. And it was enough. You smile to yourself. Not because you've abandoned the old rituals, but because you now know when not to use them. The perfume is no longer performance. It's punctuation. A choice. Historians still argue where the legacy of the perfume dentists truly settled. Some say it was swallowed by modern hygiene. Others suggest it simply evolved, disguised in lip balm, in herbal teas, in the scented ink of love letters. You know, the truth is quieter. It's in the way we prepare before a difficult conversation. The pause before a secret. The soft scent of someone leaning in close, trusting you with their breath. It's in moments where scent becomes memory, and memory becomes care. You light a single candle. The flame wavers, then steadies. Outside, the sounds of the city have melted into hush, a dog's bark in the distance, a faint clink of dishes being washed, footsteps disappearing around a corner. You pour yourself a rinse, just a simple one, made weeks ago from dried lemon peel and 2 drops of cedar essence. The liquid glows faintly in the glass. You don't speak aloud. You don't need to. You tilt the glass, breathe in deeply, and sip. The taste is soft. Balanced. A little earthy. A little bright. It tastes like closure. And maybe the beginning of something else. You press the journal closed and sit by the window, watching your breath fog against the cool glass. And in that breath, there's peace. Wind down, 300 words. So now, here we are. The candle's nearly burned itself out, its pool of wax trembling gently in the dark. The last notes of violet and cedar still linger, faintly clinging to the air around you like the hem of a forgotten robe. Your breath is quiet now. Slower. You can feel the warmth of your own chest rising and falling, soft as silk over skin. Outside, the city is folding itself inward. Even the street lamps blink a little slower. A world at rest. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to rest too. Because tonight's story wasn't really about dentistry or perfumes. Not truly. It was about the small, strange rituals we craft to care for ourselves and each other. About the ways we turn pain into poise. Memory into scent. Breath into something meaningful. So let the images fade now. The glint of pewter tools. The clove-laced opera kiss. The soft swirl of mint in a crystal glass. Let it all drift back into quiet, like perfume settling into skin. You're here now. Still. Safe. Take one more deep breath in. Hold it gently. And let it go. Let the rhythm carry you to sleep, with nothing left to do, nowhere to go, and a scent that speaks quietly of comfort, long after the last word has left the room.